Boom, 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 boom. I'm live twice in one day, baby. Is this a recipe for burnout? Or is he just cracked? The way I see it, this is just a continuation of what I was doing earlier, and I'm just gonna hop right into it. No preamble, no prelude, just going in raw. What you see in front of you is the Four Agreements. This is a book that is much different than the book that I just went over, which was a book about marketing. This one is about kind of like spirituality and kind of like the implicit contract that we take with ourselves. This is another book that I read. I actually remember reading this one because I was in an airport on my way back from Mexico City, and I was sick at the time. I had like some pretty bad illness stuff going on in my body, and this was the book that I read. I don't know if it necessarily got me through it, but I or helped me, but I do remember reading it in like the airport and stuff like that. So this was definitely a book that um was there for me in my time of need. So now we are going to go over the Four Agreements, and we're going to progressive summarize them, and we're going to have a great time. And this light is super bright and definitely keeps me wide awake. So I'm just going to get into it. So the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz and Janet Mills. Again, these are just highlights of the book that I've already read in the past, and then we're going to highlight them again and turn them into Zettelkasten notes, and then send them off to the meat processor, the meat grinder. He looked at the stars again, and he realized it's not the stars that create light, but rather light that creates stars. Everything is made of light, he says, and in the space in between isn't empty. And he knew that everything that exists is one living being, and that light is the messenger of life because it is alive and contains all information. So, from a scientific perspective, this is obviously isn't really truly true, right? Like light itself being kind of like photons and rays of light doesn't include everything, because everything isn't made of light. There's a lot of things that may be byproduct light but aren't actually light itself. And in fact, I remember reading recently that, humans give off light too. It's just at a spectrum that we don't see. So maybe things can give off light or be seen in light, but that's because our eyes perceive light, right? So that almost kind of alludes to this notion again of like, if we can't see ultraviolet, does that mean that it doesn't exist? Like, no, of course it exists, but our eyes just aren't perceived to look at it. But I guess from like a theological religious perspective, that's like the kind of idea, is that like everything is alive and you can see everything emitting light. We are born with the capacity to learn and how to dream, and the humans who lived before us teach us how to dream the way that society dreams. The outside dream has so many rules. When a new human is born, we hook the child's attention and introduce these rules into his or mind. This reminds me of Shared Fiction. Funnily enough, my first company's name, and this isn't really a company, it's like a light consultancy, was in like the 2019 kind of like AR VR era, and I was making a lot of AR experiences, and I chose the name Sharing Fiction from this book called Sapiens. Um, so I'll pull that up. Sharing Fiction in here. Let's search that. So let's say shared fiction. Oh, maybe just let's do fiction and then just read Sapiens. Fiction. Large numbers of strangers can cooperate by believing in common myths. Yes. So these two quotes here, we're going to snag and we're going to put here. Because these all kind of like hit the same kind of idea point, I think. So we are born with the capacity to learn and how to dream. The outside dream has so many rules that we hook the child's attention into the mind. Large numbers of strangers can believe in common myths. There are no gods, no justice outside of the common imagination of human beings. So, a shared fiction is still useful. Is a useful delusion that keeps us all from diverging. A shared fiction is a useful delusion that keeps us all from diverging too greatly into a society where harm would be easier to cause amongst individuals. This could go a lot of ways. This could be taken down the religion route. This could be taken down the biology route with other societal species like schools of fish or chimps. This could be taken down the route of government propaganda. There's so many things that could be talked about here, and I think I'll refrain for now because I do want to kind of like get through a number of these. But this as a starting point for an essay is actually pretty interesting. One thing that I did want to add though is a quote where from I think Paprika. Nope. I think it says insane. Insane, insane, insane. Insane. Maybe society. We live in a society. Um, there's a quote that I'm thinking of where it basically says like the only difference between an insane person is that they don't put up with society's bullshit. But I don't know what book that was in. I feel like I read it recently. But now that I'm looking at all these things that I read, I don't recognize any of them. I'm like looking through the search bar, and I don't like none of it looks familiar. Ooh, what? Oh, interesting. Maybe bullshit. Based. Not what I'm looking for, but hmm. Oh well, I can't find it. Maybe I'll put a note here to look for it. Uh, link to link the actually to link there's no link for this, right? So just to process the only difference between an insane person and a sane person is society's bullshit bukkake. And then usually because like I said, I'm trying to like get better at like putting it all the source material books. I have to actually make this into a Zettelkasten now instead of scrolling up for it later. So is this shared fictions? From birth. And then save that. That gets the to process tag automatically because of the linter. Super linted. And I will process that later. And this is cool. So now I go back here and then link that one. Shared fictions from birth. Link this one. Shared fictions from birth. And we can keep going. Whatever goes against the book of law will make you feel a funny sensation in your solar plexus, and it's called fear. Breaking the rules in the book of law will open your emotional wounds, and your reaction is to create emotional poison. Because everything that is in the book of law has to be true. Anything that challenges what you believe is going to make you feel unsafe. Even if the book is law is wrong, it makes you feel safe. You know, watching that Kaleidoscope and shows like it I think in general, like, yeah, when you watch shows that are like heist shows, they always have like a cop, player, and the cop actor is always going on about like how rules are important for holding up the law. But then they always end up changing their rule to like break it basically by somebody else's whatever, right? So it's like even if the book is law is wrong, it makes you feel safe is really interesting because you can see how cops in in shows like that will basically do the same thing, right? How many times do we pay for one mistake? The answer is thousands of times. The human is the only animal that pays 1,000 times for the same mistake. The rest of the animals pay once for every mistake that they make, but not us. We have a powerful memory. We make a mistake, we judge ourselves, we find ourselves guilty, and we punish ourselves. If justice exists, then that was enough. We don't need to do it again. But every time, remember, we judge ourselves again. We are guilty again. We punish ourselves again and again and again. This is like a prime quote for grabbing some suffering. Some suffering, baby. Let's see. What you have to know is that suffering is just a refusal. Yeah, that's kind of close to what I'm looking for. Bold that. Bold that. Sometimes I don't really even add a lot of my own thought process. It's nice when you search for something and you see the Zettles pop up because that means that you've already written about this, which is really nice. There was another one that I was looking for where it's like you have to suffer and deal with pain. I don't know if I'll find that though. Oh, maybe. This is also pretty based. Okay, I'm gonna make a note out of this. Sometimes it's nice to just like kind of again like pare down and be like, okay, I think this is good to ship because I don't need to focus on it too long. The only animal that suffers. This is kind of like philosophy, I guess. And yeah. One thing that I'm thinking of, this is very far into the future, but when I hit the 10 gigabyte on this one, which will happen, I'm gonna do the same thing again. Hey, what's up, Zero? How's it going? Did you try to use ChatGPT as a way to help you study topics? Yes and no. I think that ChatGPT. So I'm an OpenAI ambassador, by the way. So take that with a grain of salt. ChatGPT is really good at giving you first level understanding of a topic, right? So a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on stream here, I try to do like deep dives on certain topics, and ChatGPT just doesn't have the breadth to really kind of like have like all the stuff that you're seeing on this left sidebar here, for example, where it's like I can search a word or a topic and find all instances of it. Um, that might change in the future when we get GPT, maybe that a GPT that's like connected to the internet and kept up to speed, right? Like that would mean that you could access all of humanity's knowledge at once. But as of now, that's not really fully possible. So I would say that we're probably in a position where ChatGPT uh, isn't really great for deep diving topic studying, but it's really, really great for like first level. So if you're just getting started with a topic, I think ChatGPT is really great. So hope that answers the question. Um, but yeah, AI is really popular right now, and obviously, um, again, having being an OpenAI ambassador, I have my own take on kind of like what's been happening in the field the past couple um, months. But actually, it's really exciting because if you use tools like Obsidian and stuff like that, which I don't know, Zero, are you familiar with this software of Obsidian? Um, if you are, I can. If you aren't, I could explain what's going on the screen. But a lot of these tools really kind of are dependent on kind of like clustering of different nodes and stuff. So what you see in front of you. Oh, you're not familiar with Obsidian? Okay, yeah. Well, let me hop into a rant real quick. I'll keep it super short and I'll try and keep it interesting too. So the idea is that like um you've probably had a number of attempts in the past. Usually people try to journal and we all have this kind of idea of like, oh, once I start journaling, I'll be able to kind of like get insights out of my life. But a lot of these insights are really kind of hard to track because a lot of the stuff that you write down, you can't really access later. Like you can't really search it, right, on paper. So people started creating online tools or tools like Notion or tools like Evernote, right? These note-taking softwares where the idea is to kind of like start to combine the abilities of like digital tools with the abilities of kind of like pen and paper tools, right? So Obsidian is a very extensible software, extensible in the sense that it has like all of these community plugins that do different things. So there's actually an AI images plugin, funnily enough, too. So like if I go back to what I was working on here, and let's say, let me link this real quick. So you can see I'm typing in these links, and these links actually go to different pages. And then I can kind of like link to individual blocks and notes too. So I can jump to quote exactly. So imagine like if you're studying for a test or something and you are just taking in information and you kind of just like throw it into this vault, right? After a while, you'll start to kind of like form connections about the things that you're studying. So right here, if we're talking about, the intensity of the drama of human life, you might be like, oh, what else do I have about like compassion in here, right? So you could highlight this, go up here, go to compassion, and you can see all the examples of like where compassion exists in your note-taking software, right? And you can go even further than this. This is really just scratching the surface. Like I haven't even really gotten into the canvas mode. So like you can draw things that you like have, and you can do visual thinking in the same tool. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of community plugins. So one thing that I like to do is that I'll like tag YouTube, oh oops, hashtag YouTube notes, I think I called it. You can watch videos in here too. So you can like take this video, you can click this, and then it'll like pop it up over here, and you can see that it actually like plays the video, and you can jump to timestamps in the video. You can do anything in this software. It's really super extensible. And I use it as like my core tool. And a big reason that this stream exists is because I kind of like to show off this tool and what it can do, because I want more people to leverage the ability to kind of like use tools like this to come up with interesting thoughts, right? So another thing that I do with this tool is you can publish. So you've probably had someone who's had like a blog or like a Twitter account that you really like or something like that and that you follow, right? So the act of publishing on the internet is kind of hard, but with a tool like Obsidian, it's actually pretty easy. So let's say, I changed something on this note. I can see what I changed here, and then I say, like, oh, okay, so that's what changed, and then like I can say that these two notes get to be published. So I publish them, and then I go to the link here, and it's going to jump over to Chrome, and it actually is published live. So if you're into anime or Hunter x Hunter or something like that, you can see all the notes that I've written that are tagged with Hunter x Hunter. So anything that on the internet where you're like, oh, I'm wondering tomorrow, yo, what's up? Yo, I'm back. He's done it. Um, yeah, no, I am back. I was actually just thinking about you a few weeks ago when I was like, I should get back to streaming, because I was like, what I do I think is kind of boring, low key. Like it's not as interesting as Fortnite. I'll be the first to say it. But I do think it's important, and I really do enjoy the process of like deep thinking and like the creative style that comes with it. And I actually just released um, a big Obsidian thing. Please keep on. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that, Zero. That means a lot. Let me see if I have it in here. Okay, no, it's cool. I can just do this. GitHub slash Ramses. So I actually just put out a big vault template tomorrow. I think you might appreciate this because I know that we've talked about Obsidian and stuff like that in the past. And I just dropped this in the end of December. And here's the crazy part is that this is over 10,000 words. So I like wrote a entire philosophy and build up to kind of like how to use Obsidian and stuff like that. So 02, if you're interested in this, you feel free to check out this link. I'll post it in the chat. Oh, can I do that? Wait, hold. Why can I not paste in my own chat? Paste. Bruh. Okay. But anyway, hold on. Wait, why won't it let me paste? Copy. Paste. Paste. There we go. Okay. But yeah, so no, I'm back. Kind of like the idea. This is to basically just have fun. I've been doing a lot of progressive summarization, which have been outputting in these public notes here. And the idea is just to make stuff that's like really interesting, right? Talking about cyanobacteria, just really talking about any random idea that kind of like comes up, specifically through like books and stuff like that, as well as kind of content that I've been taking in on the internet. And then in the next couple of weeks, once I've built up enough kind of um, material, is to kind of like start doing like best of, right? I'm a big fan of the Atrioc streams, so I'll probably start doing kind of like a similar idea to kind of like what a marketing Monday is, but like with stuff that I know, which is like Obsidian and artificial intelligence and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get into it. Tomorrow, I don't know if we talked about this last time. I've added a number of plugins to my vault. So now I'm completely Zettelkasten pilled. So what that means is that everything that I do is very focused on distilling information into those Zettelkasten notes that you saw, right? So like all of these are kind of like the finalized output of the work. And, I can talk more about why I think that this is the case, but, in general, the kind of idea of publishing on the internet is something that is, it's hard to do. You know what I mean? And content creators, like, I think that there's this kind of pressure to kind of like continue to get bigger and do the next big thing. And that's like pretty stressful, right? So the hope is that as I continue to play with this format, it'll be easy to kind of like just talk about interesting stuff. and keep the stream kind of like more of like a podcast. I think that I want to kind of like have it be something that you could fall asleep to. Not really fall asleep to, but like something that you can kind of like zone out to, tune in for something that's interesting, and then zone back out, right? Like kind of like background noise while you're washing the dishes or something like that. And then every once in a while, there's going to be a really good idea that people might latch on to, and kind of like go with. So that's where we're at. So we're reading the Four Agreements. I have a number of books to get through. These are all the books that I've read over the past couple of years. So I'm trying to like get through them one by one by one and kind of like really turn them all into these Zettles that we're talking about here, right? So where were we? Right here. So all of humanity is searching for truth, justice, and beauty. We are on an eternal search for the truth because we only believe the lies that we have stored in our mind. We are searching for justice because in the belief system we have, there is no justice. We search for beauty because it doesn't matter how beautiful a person is, we don't believe that person has beauty. We keep searching and searching and searching, and when everything is already within us, there is no truth to find. Wherever we turn our heads, all we see is the truth, but with the agreements and beliefs we have stored in our mind, there is no eyes for this truth. So, I don't know if I have any like thoughts on this. This is interesting because again, like all of the things that you're seeing highlighted are things that I highlighted in my initial read through. So the initial read through of this book that I did back in 2019, um, this is stuff that I highlighted. But it's interesting because now that it's 2023, I have a bunch of space from it, right? So like whenever I read these things now, I'm like, do I really agree with that? Like, is this something that if I was without the rest of the context of the book, um, could not like controlling the mind state, uh, do I still agree with it or do I disagree with it? It's very kind of like the Bruce Lee ideology of like take what you need, discard what you don't, and adapt what you get into your own working style. And he was, of course, talking about that for fighting, but I'm doing it for taking nerdy notes on the internet. But anyway, I don't really have much to think about that. We have the need to be right and to make others wrong. We trust what we believe, and our beliefs set us up for suffering. I think this part is interesting because I've been seeing a lot of this in my space recently, like in the tech space. So I do a lot of work with people who are, let's say, hard headed, right? So I work with a lot of people whose goals are very binary, right? They're like, oh, if it doesn't work out in this very specific way, that means the whole thing was a wash. And that's kind of not, I think, a way to kind of like build a healthy product, right? So like when it comes to product building, I think the better strategy actually is to have an open mind, but also be firm about the goal. So being firm about the goal and having an open mind aren't mutually exclusive. So I'm gonna write that down. Having open mind, mutually exclusive. And we have the need to be right is really interesting because basically it's like why what would derive that need? You know, it's almost like the cognitive bias of confirmation bias. So here's again a trick, right? So I type in confirmation bias here on my Obsidian here in my garage, and then I'm going to search for confirmation bias, and I can see all of the times that confirmation bias came up. So let's see. I've often noticed that many of the notes that people take of ideas are what they agree with, or we have a natural bias as humans to seek evidence that confirms what we already believed. Um, the renowned information theorist Claude Shannon, whose discoveries paved the way, described had a simple definition for information. If you're not surprised, or then you already knew it at some level, so why take note of it? So that's actually pretty interesting, right? So I think that that's interesting enough to kind of like come into this note that we're taking here. So I'll grab that with a quick little copy. I'll lock this page in so I can lock it in for later use. I'm interested to see what these other ones say about that too. So let's see. Coddling of the American mind. Each professor, like all human beings, is a flawed thinker. Each scholar suffers from confirmation bias to search what they already believe. A nice part about this, and maybe I'm confirmation biased about this way of doing research, is that you are actually kind of like seeing a lot of different authors' thoughts on things, right? At the same time. So you almost have to battle those opinions together and see which one you believe, which is kind of interesting. Hold on, Zero. I'm going to read that in a second. I'm just going to paste this in here. Objectability, the capability of embracing a decision around a need, but always keeping the necessary tools to be able to replace that decision with any equally fit to the need. Yeah, I like that a lot. Is that actually a term? Objectability? I'm going to Google that. That's interesting. The capability of embracing, you know what? I like that. I'm going to copy that. And that's also going to go in here. Hell yeah, dude. I'm gonna cite you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm gonna say 0 B52 in chat. I appreciate it. Thank you. Give me 0 credits on this. Oh, you want 0 credits? All right, fine. All right, that's chill. I can do that. Yeah, this will go on my website. So I'll thank you for that though. I really appreciate it. So now I go through and I usually bold the things. The reason that bolding is really interesting is that it's your eyes are immediately drawn to it, right? It just like immediately sticks out, which is the point. But when you're doing this line of work where you're putting in a lot of words that are kind of related, bolding gives people a heads up to be like, oh, this is the thing that he was talking about. This is the part that was interesting. So for this Cloud Shannon one, the two things that we're going to highlight is that we have a natural bias, and then we also have a simple definition for, and sometimes I also like to bold things halfway through a sentence. And I think that other people might disagree with me on this, but the reason that I like doing it is because, again, you're trying to get as close as possible to the thing that's important, as opposed to kind of just like getting the stuff around it. So a simple definition for information. If you're not already surprised, why take note of it, right? So this is like kind of, we can get rid of this footnote. That's kind of based, right? This is why viewpoint diversity is so essential. Each professor is a flawed thinker. Each scholar suffers from confirmation bias. One of the most brilliant features of universities when they're working properly is they are communities of scholars that cancel out confirmation biases, which is interesting too. And then we can call this institutionalized disinformation. And then objectability is the capability of embracing a decision around a need, but keeping the necessary tools to be able to replace that decision. I like that. So yeah, that's really good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And now I will publish it too, so I can show you how that works. Especially when I'm including from other books, I try to publish at that moment, just because I want to close these tabs. I don't like having so many tabs open in Obsidian. So I'll hit Control X here. And this is a part of the BHOV thing that I linked in chat, is that it automatically opens up a Zettelkasten template. And then all you have to do is type in the title and it'll propagate the rest of the tools from the clipboard. So let's call this one confirmation bias and how to avoid it. I hit enter and it just automatically fills everything in, which is great. I hit save. It changes the aliases. The aliases are what show up in Obsidian's linking system. And then for here, I'm going to put philosophy and I'm going to put psychology as the tags. And then I usually go back here and then I link this so I can close this tab. And then I close this guy. And then I link this and do the same thing. Coddling of the American mind. Nope, confirmation bias and how to avoid it. And then I close this guy. And then I hit Control P. And then I hit publish. And then I hit this. and then I hit this, and this feels good. Like, I'm obviously biased, but the being able to just hit a button and then like have it go to your own website, right? So this shows up, I click this publish Bram thing and then go to Chrome, and we can go to the bottom here. I wish I could switch the sort, but here it is. It's live and on the website like already, and tied into everything else too, right? So now you can find it through publish homepage as well if you can like click it through AI or another tag. So love that. That's really great. Cool. So let's get back to our source material and continue dredging up interesting insights together. Okay, what's next? Your whole mind is a fog, which the Toltecs called a mitote, pronounced mitote. Okay. Your mind is a dream where 1,000 people talk at the same time and nobody understands each other. This is the condition of the human mind, a big mitote. And with that big mitote, oh my God, there's so many mitotes in here. You cannot see what you really are. In India, they call them mitote Maya, which means illusion. It is the personality's notion of I am. Everything in the world you believe about yourself everything you believe about yourself and the world, all the concepts and programming you have in your mind are all the mitote. We cannot see what we truly are. We cannot see that we are not free. So this is interesting. I mean, sometimes so this already got me thinking of the thing that we just saw above here, where we were talking about um, shared fictions, right? So this mitote might be a part of that shared fiction. So usually what I'll do here is that I'll add a note for myself to link to the shared fiction notes, but because I have it right here, I don't need to do that. I can actually just grab this thing here. So what I'll do is I'll go back here, and then I will just do that. And then basically when I'm done at the end of the book, I usually come back up and then I say like, oh, I can just put this back in here. So let's say, let's highlight this because this is what I thought was interesting about this part, where it says in India, they call them mitote Maya, which means illusion, which is interesting because like I know a few Mayas in my real life, not Maya Higa, but I know a few Mayas in my real life that I grew up with. And I don't know if they're Maya because of the India Maya or like where the name Maya comes from. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, so I will link that at the end. So that is why humans resist life. To be alive is the biggest fear that humans have. Death is not the biggest fear that we have. Our biggest fear is taking the risk to be alive. The risk to be alive and express what we really are. Just being ourselves is the biggest fear of humans. I disagree with this because I read Ernst Becker's Denial of Death. And Denial of Death is a really good read where he basically kind of philosophizes from the kind of Kierkegaard perspective of like, what is the purpose of being alive if for our immortality projects, and kind of like how do we all deal with the underlying fear of death. So I actually have a note here that does the fear of death being the root of all anger. So I would probably just put this one here, and then I'd say this is a disagreement of this, right? So a disagreement, maybe an opposing viewpoint is probably the best way to put it. Because in a lot of ways, and the reason that I'm siding with Ernst Becker on this, and this is just a subjective opinion on me reading these two books and having my own opinion, is that life is only really compatible with like kind of like or understandable in the context of death, right? Like something that kind of goes forever doesn't have a death, so it never really was alive, right? Like the kind of hard, the peanut butter to the jelly, the the flip side of being alive is death, and the flip side of death is being alive, right? They kind of work together. So I mean, I can see where this author came from, and I think that this book has been very influential for a lot of people. But I don't necessarily agree with this viewpoint, which is nice because again, like you get to form these ideas as you go. We know we are not what we believe we are supposed to be, and so we feel false, frustrated, and dishonest. Uh, Something eternal never really was alive. This dream is deep. Yeah, and I'm about to play some Minecraft for 4 hours, so get ready for that. It's gonna get real deep in here, baby. Uh, um, we try to hide ourselves, and we pretend to be what we are not. The result is that we feel unauthentic, and we wear a social mask to keep others from noticing this. We are so afraid that somebody else will notice that we are not what we pretend to be. We judge others accordingly to our image of perfection, and naturally they fall short of our expectations. Yeah, I mean that's pretty deep. You know what I'm saying? This is pretty deep right here. This idea of unauthentic social masks to keep others from noticing our own insecurities is is pretty interesting. Because there's no subject without an object to compare it to. So let me see if I have that in here. How would I search that? So one thing that's interesting about searching in this software is that you can do full text searching, but you don't necessarily always want to do matching searching. So if I say subject without, what comes up? You see a lot of stuff about like subject, but the words I'm thinking like a subject without an object. So I could do subject, and then I can do object, and this will have to have subject and object. The mind is not the subject, the mind is an object. The object of persecution. I guess maybe this isn't the and I was looking for, maybe and. Oh wow, I got a lot more. Oh, now it's just doing and. Wait, how do I do the SQL searching? What is this? Most science fiction movies, the victory of mind over matter. 30,000 years ago, mind creates a stone knife, hand creates a knife. Wait, mind creates a stone knife, hand creates a knife. Human kills mammoth. But the truth is that humans gain control of the world not so much by inventing knives and killing mammoths as in manipulating human minds. The mind is not the subject that freely shapes historical actions and biological realities. The mind is an object that is shaped by history and biology. Yeah. I don't think that's relevant to what I'm looking for right now, though. I think I have one more search idea. Compare itself. Oh, wait, here we go. Hold. Let's go. Let's go. I found it. I found it in this book. Let's go. Without objects, there can be no subject because the object creates the subject's awareness of himself. This is crazy. This goes crazy hard. Um, so I'll just actually grab this whole thing here and then hit paste. It's easy as that, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Without objects, there can be no subject because the objects subject create an awareness of itself. What does a subject need to exist an object to compare itself to? That's crazy that I was able to find. I kind of want to like leave this here because if I wanted to find it later, you know what I mean? But I can actually just move it out of the note and promote it um, to here. So then I can hopefully just find it later too, right? Like a big idea of the Zettelkasten and why we do these note takings in the first place is that like, sure, it's like fun and sexy to like show off this graph to your friends and be like, oh my God, wow, you're such a deep thinker. Do you think all this time? Like you must be taking notes constantly. But like if you can't find any of these things, it's kind of a moot point, right? So the idea is that you want to like leave breadcrumbs for yourself that you would remember, right? That's the important part. Okay, what's going on here? So we know that we are not supposed to believe. The result is that we feel unauthentic and wear social masks to hide ourselves. So let's say that we let's bold this too, and we judge others to our image of perfection. This is also something that is based around this subject, right? So, and it's interesting to because pride is interesting, right? Because it it's a deep subject. It's like one of the seven deadly sins, right? Um, and I'm not religious at all, really. But the I think it pride exists in a lot of different religions for a reason. It's an old thorn in the side of the human species, right? Like we all have some level of pride that we hold within our hearts that I think within reason is actually helpful, right? Like there's a lot of egoic reasons that people want to become doctors, but they could still make great doctors, right? So even though they might be like a doctor who is like, I want to just have like the status of being a doctor, if they do four successful heart surgeries and save those people's lives, then like, was it bad that they had ego? But then pride can really run away with itself, right? Because pride is never satiated, and I think that that's the biggest problem that people have with pride is that it never gets filled. You will always find another level of comparison to leverage yourself against, right? So it's like that you'll always be chasing after keeping up with the Joneses is actually the term. So that's that I think fits into this too. Joneses. Look at that. I have it in here. Amazing. This is a long quote. Oh no. Okay. I'm gonna read it though in my post cold post-nasal drip voice. In 1930, in a speech called Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren, the economist the economist the economist John Maynard Keynes made a famous prediction. Within a century, thanks to the growth of the wealth and the advance of technology, no one would have to work more than about 15 hours a week. The challenge would be to fill all of our newfound leisure time without going crazy. For the first time since his creation, Keynes told his audience, man will be faced with the real, his permanent problem, how to use his freedom from pressing economic cares. But Keynes was wrong. It turns out that when people make just enough money to make just enough money to meet their needs, they just find new things to need and new lifestyles to aspire to. They never quite manage to keep up with the Joneses because whenever they're in danger of getting close, they nominate new and better Joneses with whom to try to keep up. As a result, they work harder and harder, and soon busyness becomes an emblem of prestige, which is clearly completely absurd. For the almost the whole of history, the entire point of being rich was not to work so much. So I'm gonna grab this because this is pretty good too. I think this actually fits the thing that we're looking at pretty well. So if we go back to this Four Agreements book here, and then we're gonna bold the, let's say, this Keeping Up with the Joneses, all the way from business becomes an emblem of prestige, and then yeah. So I think that the the idea of a subject and an object is interesting because then it comes at, yeah, greed is another capital sin, exactly. So pride within reason can cause a person to become a doctor and save people's lives. But pride is also a unfillable hole. Unfillable isn't a word. Infilliable. Unfillable. This is my hack for when I don't actually want to look up the right word for things. Is that I just do un or d or like whatever the thing is that where like it's the inverse or whatever, and then I just put a hyphen. It's like a total hack. It's not correct, but it is like a way to just very quickly get an idea across. Like this isn't for a thesis. This is just to post interesting things on the internet, um, and show people some cool books that they might want to be interested in reading. Without objects, there can be no subject. Okay, so social mass. So yeah, let's talk about like let's call this one the uh the the societal mirror of perfection. That sounds like a good title. The societal mirror of perfection. And then we're gonna save this boy. And then we're gonna call this philosophy. Perfect. You know, again, like I said, the linter, it's all thanks to the Obsidian linter plugin. So every time I hit save, it automatically runs this linter program, and like reformats the note with all the specified changes. So if you use Obsidian, highly recommend linter. Really phenomenal plugin and built into BHOV, which is linked in the chat. So what we're going to do next is we're going to link the societal mirror of perfection, and we're going to link the societal mirror of perfection. Can't believe I haven't seen Linter yet. Yeah, Linter is so good, dude. It's like, it's really a game changer. You have to like mess with the settings a bit. In BHOV, I messed with the settings, and I don't know if I listed them, but there's a bunch of settings. So you go to the lint on save. You're going to want to ignore certain files. The YAML is where you really go hard. There's just so many options that you have to like read through all of these, which is like kind of a pain. But yeah, the ones that I turned on were like adding the aliases and the tags and stuff like that, which is really great. And then it just kind of goes around and title cases things. It adds footnotes to the right things and stuff like that. Does content conversion, etc., etc., etc. It's really good. I recommend it. We are rocking and rolling here with the publishing folks. We are actually crushing it. That is 2 notes published, 3 notes published already on stream. It's great. And we have had a lot of interesting conversations about pride and ego and the illusion of mitote and Maya, confirmation bias, suffering. Like we're on a roll here. Um, in your whole life, nobody has ever abused you more than you have abused yourself. Well, I don't know about that. And then the limit of your self abuse is exactly the limit that you will tolerate from somebody else. If someone's abuse is a little more than you abuse yourself, you will probably walk away from that person. But if someone abuses you a little less than you abuse yourself, you will probably stay in the relationship and tolerate it endlessly. So, um, uh, this is obviously tricky. I don't know. I think that you could you could argue part of this to be true, but this is really hard to prove because other people can be like downright villainous to each other, right? Like later on in this series of streams, we're going to be doing Man Search for Meaning because I think that's coming up because I think I read it around this time. And oh, did I just disconnect? Okay, no, I'm back. I just effed. If my chat goes down, if anyone's in chat, just say F or something like that, and then or like fix it, and then it's like my Wi-Fi is pretty bad. And then I'll try and fix it. But anyway, uh, yeah, this one's like again, it's like it's really hard to verify, but I can see where the author was coming from, uh, given the fact that we live in our own heads and have to deal with our own mental bullshit for 24 hours a day, right? So even if you are dealing with another person who's in evil and torturous, and then you still go home and you have to like think about it. So I get that part, but I disagree with the other the core thesis, I guess. One single agreement is not such a problem, but when we have many agreements that make us suffer, that make us fail in life, one second, that make us fail in life. If you want to live a life of joy and fulfillment, you have to find the courage to break the agreements that are fear based and claim your personal power. The agreements that come from fear require us to expend a lot of energy, but the agreements that come from love help us to conserve energy. Again, like some of these, I'm just like not going to have anything to really add or remove or comment on. Regardless of what language you speak, your intent manifests through the world. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will all be manifested through the word. Skip. The human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. The seeds are opinions, ideas, and concepts. You plant a seed, a thought, and it grows. The word is like, I keep saying word and want to say world, is like a seed. And the human mind is so fertile. Also skip. Now let us seed what the word impeccability means. Impeccability means without sin. Impeccable comes from the Latin peccatus, which means sin. The im in impeccable means without. So impeccable means without sin. Religions talk about sin and sinners, but let's understand what it really means to sin. A sin is anything that you do which goes against yourself. Everything you feel or believe or say that goes against yourself is a sin. You go against yourself when you blame or you judge or yourself for anything. Being without sin is exactly the opposite. Being impeccable is not going against yourself. When you are impeccable, you take a responsibility for your actions, but you do not judge or blame yourself. Um, I remember reading this book in an airport. I think I mentioned this earlier in the stream. And I remember I was like kind of sick at the time and my head was kind of all over the place. And I remember this kind of hitting when I was reading the chapter about impeccableness. And I think it was interesting because it was like, how do you speak to yourself in a way where you only tell yourself the truth? And telling yourself the truth is interesting because it's like you want to tell yourself enough of the truth not to lie. And that's a very tricky rewording. But I think what that means is that, like, in addition to the random things that go on in your life, it's important not to lie to yourself. And I do think that's really important. I think that, like, being pragmatic and realistic with oneself allows you to cut through unhelpful dialogue that's either too positive or too negative. And later on in the series, Beginning of Infinity is coming up, and that book is a physics nightmare, but it actually has a whole chapter on optimism. And it, we just above that here we were talking about shared fictions and delusions. But impeccability is interesting because to the best of your ability, it means to not lie against yourself. So now that I'm reading it again, um, it's interesting because like the author really took the word sin down a different route than one might see in like a Catholic church in Waco, Texas, or something, right? Or a Protestant church. I don't think there's many Catholic churches in Texas. But like the idea of like sinning against a Lord or a God versus like sinning against yourself is really interesting, right? Where it's like there's definitely a part of yourself that you've hurt by lying. And I think that the problem with lying is that it creates. So here's another thing. So let's highlight this, and then let's highlight this, and then let's search for lying. Oh boy. Uh-oh, there's a lot. Turns out that people write the word lying a lot. Who would have guessed? I think the one that I'm looking for is like there's a thing where it's like lying creates to something something something. Oh, okay. So that's nice because it also is pulling up things like relying. That's shorter. Okay. Um what is this? In his 1891 book, The Decay of Living, decay is translated decadencia in the Spanish edition. He articulates the anti-mimetic vision of the artist. The artist is a creator par excellence. The artist brings new realities into being and changes how we see the world and experience it. Wilde believes that lying, the telling of beautiful, untrue things, is the proper aim of art. It's an art, a science, and a social pleasure, and its decay is responsible for the decay of literature. Today, everyone is obsessed with representing reality as accurately as possible, with facts and accuracy. But if something cannot be done to check or at least modify our monstrous worship of facts, art will become sterile and beauty will pass away from the land. The artist endows things with beauty and is the renown is why and is the reason why attention is paid to some things in the first place. Wilde writes about the fog in London, for example. It has always existed, but its wonder and the attention paid happened because of poets and painters thought the loveliness of such effects. They did not exist till art had invented them. So actually, this is interesting because like this can kind of just become its whole thing on lying. But I'll grab this and then run that back into the highlight, and then I'll say that lying, the beautiful art, is an art, a science. Because this is an interesting take on lying, right? Uh, let's see. Uh, so you know, according to this author, so let's say according to the author of the Four Agreements, lying to oneself and by extension others is the greatest offense that can be done, but there are other ways to look at lying, including, and then like this is just jumps into this decay of lying thing. This again, this whole thing should kind of feel like a jam. And also, one of the nice things about these Zettelkastens is that they're not the totality of knowledge, right? Like the they should feel kind of incomplete. Um, and then I want to highlight that, right? Like the idea that these are kind of linked to each other and kind of just like starting ideas for points and stuff like that, I think should hopefully inspire people to kind of jump between different ideas and form their own kind of like knowledge as well, and kind of be like, I disagree with him on that. I think he was stupid about that. Right. So if they can disagree with me, that's good. Right. I actually encourage it. Okay. Now I want to see this other form of lying. Resist the urge. Similarly, resist the urge to blame the media for lying to you. Mostly they are giving you a skewed view, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of lying that's like lying underground, but there's a very specific lying that I'm looking for. Unlike lying in imagined reality. Oh, that's actually interesting. I'll take that too. And then that relates us to our shared fiction note, right? That we have above here. So shared fictions from birth. I usually get rid of the alias here because I just kind of want to link to the note itself. And then I can link to the shared fiction delusion. So in this case, lying is in equals 1, shared delusion is in equals n. It's kind of interesting, right? Including a boon for the artist. So here, again, in this one above, art is actually kind of built around the idea of lying, which is true. I mean, like if you've ever watched a TV show with your favorite actor and you've seen them in multiple TV shows, you begin to realize that, wait a second, you're not these people. You're a different person when the camera goes off, and they are, right? Like the idea should be that they are doing a good enough job of lying to you that you believe that they're that character. So I couldn't find my original quote that I wanted for lying, but I think this is actually still a pretty good place to leave this note, where we got to look at the value of lying. So let's call that this one. New note. The value of a good lie. So let's put that under the philosophy bucket. You'll notice that like during these books, a lot of them will end up with similar tags, and that's because they all come from the same kind of book, right? The value of a good lie. which is funny because the value of a good lie is very close to like the value of a good life. Um, so that's a little kind of cute play on words. The value of a good lie. Oh, whoops. The value of a good lie. Um, yeah, that feels pretty good. I like where that note went. Um, I got these like 5 plugin updates tomorrow. I don't know if you've ever used this. This is another one, but literally it's called Plugin Update Tracker, and it's pretty funny because it's showing up in Plugin Update Tracker. I don't like to do my plugin updates on stream just because if something breaks, then I won't be able to fix it. But it shows you the code changes as well here. You can see the release notes here, which is pretty cool, and you can see like what they changed. You can choose to like if I choose to reject this one, I can highlight it and I can ignore this version and wait till the next version, which is really cool. So that's another plugin that I recommend, and it's also included in BHOV. If I love myself, I will express that love in my interactions with you. And then I am being impeccable with the word because that action will produce a like reaction. If I love you, then you will love me. If I insult you, then you will insult me. If I have gratitude for you, you will have gratitude for me. If I'm selfish with you, you shall be selfish with me. If I use a word to put a spell on you, you're going to put a spell on me. Uh, yeah, it's kind of like you get what you receive, what you give, right? Um, you receive what you give is like kind of uh sure. I mean, like in a lot of ways, right? Like again, it's really hard to kind of like track that and be like, is that true? Like I said something mean to this person, so they're more likely to kind of become mean to me in the future, which is true, right? That's a fact. But like if I do something nice for a person, hopefully it'll come back to me. That actually brings me up to an interesting point of altruism. So like altruism as a oh, here we go. Um so let's say that this to give with the expectation to receive. Sometimes I use lists if I don't have a like full sentences in mind. Lists are pretty useful. Here's another thing. I don't know how to spell receive. I actually got an email from my app stenography and somebody was like, yo, you spelled receive wrong on like the homepage. And for some reason, I always do this. Like I always think that it's EI or IE instead of EI. So like that's just something that I just can't spell. RECEIVE. Okay. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So that's like yeah, the vibe of every action having an equal opposite reaction is like a physics thing. So here we go. Yet Smith's claim that the selfish human urge to increase private profits is the basis for collective wealth. Revolutionary, not from an economic perspective, but a political perspective. Greed is good, and in fact, by becoming richer, benefit everybody. Egoism is altruism. So obviously, um, capitalism is a philosophy similar to how communism and socialism are also philosophies. But Smith's claim that increasing private profits for collective wealth is one of the most revolutionary ideas in history. So let's see that greed is good and be becoming richer. Egoism is altruism. So altruism, this isn't what I was looking for, but I'll definitely link it in the note. I was looking for outside of altruism, no. Pathological altruism, no. Major transitions, altruism within the group, no. Patronage isn't motivated by altruism, but an interest in following a creator's work. It's more like a subscription than a donation. This is true. This is actually interesting. I don't know if this fits into the overall narrative of this note, but again, the idea is that like it's almost like pulling um what you do so that's interesting, right? Because this is the idea of like this is that idea where it's like if I love you, then you will love me, and this kind of like quid pro quo relationship stuff. I think it kind of ties into like the idea of like streaming a little bit too, obviously with like the kind of relationships that streamers build with chat and the relationships that chat build with streamers, and you know uh, uh, versus like the relationships that people have in like kind of like daily life and stuff like that. But it's interesting because like patronage isn't motivated by altruism, but an interest in following a creator's future work based on their current reputation being like a subscription, but also knowing that the creator themselves actually goes live and streams because they're trying to make themselves richer, right? You know what I mean? In some shape or form, egotistically. And we actually talked about that earlier with Pride, right? We talked about the societal mirror of perfection with Pride. So I linked that here um, because, again, pride doesn't always have to be negative, right? Societal mirror of perfection, and then we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do pride. Oh, we can't do aliases with that. Okay. Yeah, pride. Nice. This is going really well. So what are we gonna call this one? Patronage, altruism, greed, altruism. Maybe the not the cycle, the quid pro quo of altruism and greed. The quid pro quo of altruism and greed. Yeah, I like that. And then we're also going to give this one a good old philosophy tag. It's pretty great. And I just got a text. Oh man, I got a group chat is going off right now. Group chat. A lot of notes in the group chat. Okay. We're gonna link these guys here. The quid pro quo of altruism and greed. That actually sounds like a fucking badass metal band album name. The quid pro quo of altruism and greed. There's like a video that I linked in my in the Zettelcast in. Let's see. South Park. Metal band. Oh, I think it's in humor. It's probably from like yesterday. I will say that like the searching is really annoying because I want to be able to search on Publish. I mean, Publish has a lot of other pros that I wouldn't get rid of it, but like I want to be able to search like text that's not headers. Okay, yeah, it is Get Me Off This Farm. Didn't I search that? Oh no, there it is. Get Me Off This Farm. So yeah, I don't know if my audio is going to be working, but I can try to do this. Let's see. Is that hearable on stream? The Stan Marsh Get Me Off This Farm. So good. Um, God, I love that. Hate this farm. I hate this farm. And this is like the original song, this Death Decline Useless Sacrifice by Brutal Death Metal, which when you have to put brutal death metal in the title, it's got to be pretty brutal, right? Like that can't not be that brutal if you put brutal in the title. Um, Good news is we're almost done with this book. and then I'll probably log because it's been an hour and a half. I'll publish all of these, and then yeah. So the power of the word is completely misused in hell. We use the word to curse, to blame, to find guilt, to destroy. Of course, we use it in the right way, but not too often. Mostly, we use the word to spread all personal poison, to express anger, jealousy, envy, and hate. The word is pure magic, the most powerful gift we as humans have, and we use it against ourselves. We plan revenge. We create chaos with word. We use the word to create hate between different races, between different people, families, and between nations. We misuse the word so often, and this misuse is how we perpetuate the dream of hell. Misuse of the word is how we pull each other down and keep each other in a state of fear and doubt. FUD. Because the word is the magic that humans possess and misuse is black magic. We are using black magic without knowing our word is magic at all. Yes, no. I mean, like, I think he's giving word a lot of credit. Um, Words are powerful, but they're very much overcome by action. The value of word as a tool is that it's very lightweight. Like it's really easy to transmit words between people, as opposed to like transmitting action, right? So like I think that like it's easy to kind of just be like, oh, the word, we misuse the word. Which like, yeah, we do. But sticks and stones. These types of spells are difficult to break. The only thing that can break a spell is to make a new agreement based on truth. The truth is the most important part of being impeccable with your word. On one side of the sword are the lies which create black magic, and on the other side is the truth which has the power to break the spell of black magic. Only the truth will set us free. Only the truth will set you free. I mean, like again, like truth, because knowledge moves so much, there is like we'll talk about this when we get to the beginning of Infinity, which is going to be a while from now. But like, which means I might be streaming for a while. Woo! Um, but like in Newton's world, gravity was true, right? But we now know that like gravity got displaced by Einstein's theory, which doesn't make it any less true. It just changes the scope of the truthiness of it, I suppose. Using the analogy of the human mind as a computer, gossip can be compared to a computer virus. A computer virus is a computer language with harmful intent. Yeah, again, this is like one of those things where it's like all ideas move kind of mimetically, and some of them are more healthy than others. For example, like this falls apart when you look at like how humans treated carbs for a while, right? Or cholesterol, or unhealthy fat, where it's like, oh, remove this from your diet because it's killing you, right? And it spread through humans like wildfire, and everybody was like, oh my god, I can't eat anything with this in it anymore because it's going to make me fat and I'm going to die. But it wasn't so simple, right? And science had to actually be on the back foot and kind of like respond to that slowly and be like, hey guys, like that's not completely untrue, but you might be taking it too far. Right? So I think that like this idea of gossip in its purest form, sure, will be like a harmful intent virus, right? Like gossip is to come in there and be like, oh, like I'm just gonna say some really fucked up shit about Stacy. But like gossip as like just humans talking and conjecturing about something that may or may not be true, it's like it's a lot less clear. Even worse are the black magicians or computer hackers who intentionally spread the virus. Think back to a time when you or someone you knew was angry with someone else and desired revenge. In order to seek revenge, you said something about that person or with the intention of spreading poison and making that person feel bad about themselves. As children, we do this quite thoughtlessly, but as we grow older, we become more calculated in our efforts to bring people down. We lie to ourselves and then say that that person received a just punishment for their wrongdoing. So this is interesting for a few reasons, right? Because it's interesting in terms of like crowd mentality. So like I would say like crowd mentality takedowns of an individual, which in our kind of modern era we refer to as cancel culture, but it's not just cancel culture. It's like much older than that. It's like mob culture. Um, it's basically this idea where one person knows what's going on and everybody else is just following everybody else. So the mimetic following of a leader whose intentions are many levels removed. So this is dangerous just in general. You know, whether you're watching Twitch or YouTube or something like that, always just take people that you see on the internet with a grain of salt for that reason, because their intentions are a little bit distant from your intentions. And that's fine, right? Like, as long as it's not causing any harm in the universe, or to other people or yourself. But something to think about. So yeah, and then I wanted to talk about reactive versus proactive violence. So humans are really good at proactive violence, and I actually have a thing for this. I have a quote for this. Hold up, I have a thing for this. Harry Potter. Close. Proactive violence. And then we're gonna search that bad boy. No. Reactive violence. Well, okay. So we're gonna open the book that I know it's from because I just read it recently, and then hopefully, grown-up humans play more. We fart less. We fart less. We fight less. I don't know if we fart less. Do humans fart less than chimps? How would one test that? Wouldn't it be like really diet based? Would you have to like run a median average and see like, a human farts 3 times is 3 times is too little. What's the average number of times a human farts in a day? I'm gonna Google it. Average farts per day. Women might actually fart more than men. However, they are typically more discreet about doing it. Humans pass gas 13 to 21 times a day. Okay, chimpanzees. Doesn't say who. TIL that gorillas are in a constant state of flatulence due to a large amount of bacteria that lives in their guts. Bro, that's so funny. That's so funny. They're just out here farting 24/7. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to go back and read that. That's good. That's good. Okay, let's go back. Let's stay on target here. Grown-up humans play more than adults of other species, and we fight far less. Even the most belligerent human groups only engage in violence about 250 to 600 times less frequently than chimpanzees. So I'm looking for I'm gonna actually bold this part too. This part kind of slaps. I'm looking for the violence part where he talks about like proactive violence, because it's like, okay, yeah, here we go. No, maybe not. Next. Okay, maybe just search violent. I don't know if I highlighted the quote that I was looking for, unfortunately, where it talks about basically in this chapter, It talks about how humans are trained in childhood to become non-reactive, violent species. We instead focus on premeditated violence, which is more deadly and intentional. And I actually have a note about violence here where it's just like a bunch of memes across the internet about violence, and Sigma from Overwatch. It's a good video. And some songs that have the word violence in it. If I were a chimpanzee, I'd spend an appreciable part of my day trying to avoid being beat up or killed. I wish I had the exact quote. It's pretty unfortunate. Maybe I. Oh, proactive aggression. Okay, so maybe if I just search proactive. Yeah, here we go. I just found it. Easy. Easy clap. It's pretty interesting. Like, and it is, it's obvious when you think about it, right? Like, you know, you'll go to a bar and someone will piss you off and you'll scream at each other and try to size up each other with each other's words before going to fisticuffs, because you know that fisticuffs can end up with somebody dead or seriously hurt, and you know that affects their families and their friends and everything like that. So I think in general people don't want to fight. And then when it comes to like war, or like when it comes to like kind of like country scale level violence, people will just go off and be like, yeah, I'm gonna kill people. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the Mr. The assassin in Rick and Morty, where he's like, oh, I guess I'm gonna go killing again. Just like that level of just not not caring, I guess. Hold on. There I go killing again. Let me mute this tab. Mute. Is it muted? It is muted. Crumboculus Michael. Here's another plugin that I've been using recently that it's pretty cool. So it's a combination plugin. So like whenever I want a YouTube video in my Zetals, I'll just put in the link here. I'll highlight this guy, I'll right click, and then it's a URL to preview iframe. And then it'll pop up this thing, and I hit OK, and it just puts into an iframe. And I have a text expander here because on mobile this doesn't line up well. And then I can hit Alt, and this automatically puts a div in, which centers it in the middle of the page using CSS. So, yeah. That one's good. Let's take this out, and then let's call it the, I don't want to say like the violence of adults, but maybe like the intentional, the frontal lobe, the violence of the frontal lobe. The violence of the frontal lobe. This is interesting because like, right, like this is actually biology, right? Again, like we're talking about like, oh, humans are trained to become non-reactive violent species, but then like as we get older we have to become more cautious about how we do violence, right? Or lack thereof. Biology and a little bit of philosophy. Actually, no, not that much philosophy, just biology. And then I want to link that here. The violence of the frontal lobe. Another banger title, completely on accident. And also here, the violence of the frontal lobe. All right. Let's see, what do we have here? Uh, changes first in the way you deal with yourself and later in the way you deal with other people, especially those who love you the most, who you love the most. Um, yeah, but I don't know. You can measure the impeccability of the word by your level of self love. How much you love yourself and how you feel about yourself are directly proportionate to the quality and integrity of your word. When you are impeccable with your word, you feel good, you feel happy and at peace. Yeah, I mean, in general, I think it is important to kind of like feel that you can tell yourself the truth. Um, and that's kind of related to what we were looking at earlier. It is possible. It's possible because I did it, and you and I are the same. We have the same kind of brain, same kind of bodies. We are humans. If I was able to break those agreements and create new ones, okay, yeah, sure. You take it personally because you agree. As soon as you agree, the poison goes through you and trapped in the dream of hell. What causes you to be trapped is what we call personal importance. Personal importance, so that taking things personally is the maximum expression of selfishness because we make the assumption that everything is about me. Uh, this is interesting because like this just reminds me of the I just watched this South Park clip of like Cartman meeting Caesar Milan, and he is like going through kind of like he's Caesar Milan is kind of like training him in real time. It's pretty interesting. Uh what if I highlight this URL, paste? That work? I don't think that worked. No, that didn't work. Um Gotta do this the old fashioned way. Oh, maybe it just doesn't load. Maybe it did work. All right, whatever. Um Nothing you do is because of you. All people. Uh, Cartman has a lot of personal importance. Will be the note of this title's note. Um, but we can come back to that. If someone gives you an opinion and says, "Hey, you look fat," don't take it personally because the truth is that this person is dealing with their own feelings and beliefs and opinions. If you take it personally, then the poison becomes yours. Taking things personally. So this is, I think, from Siddhartha, where the Buddha was talking about if I don't take something, then it stays yours. I think anger. So if I go to Siddhartha and I type in anger, uh, maybe it's in here. No, it's not. Okay, maybe Buddha. No. Um, some cubes. Uh, Maybe I just search anger. It'll come up. Little bit anger searching in it. Anger. Um, or maybe like Buddha. Hmm. Oh, here we go. There's like a meme that I'm thinking of. Uh, it's like can't COVID can infect you if you don't give it consent. Anger can't wash over you without your consent. Philosophy. I'm gonna see if I can find it. COVID without your consent. And search. Meme. Found it. Uh, this part's really great because I have a script on my computer that I can shrink images with. So I'm going to go to this image here. I'm going to clean up by date modified. And I'm actually going to change the name to getting legally infected. Yeah. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to, you can't see this, but I'm going into my quick actions and I'm compressing the image and it's like literally shrinking before my eyes, the size of it. So now it's, how big is it now? 87 kilobytes, which is going to load on the website super fast. Getting infected, just so no. Can't wash over you legally without your consent. Oh, wait, what the fuck? Yo. Okay. So that's a funny picture to add to the book. Anger can't wash over you. Anger can't wash over you without your consent. Consente. What you say, what you do, and the opinions you have are according to the agreements you have made, and these opinions have nothing to do with me. Harry Potter. This also can just go in here. Bold this guy. Close this. Close this. Close this. Whatever people do, think, or say, don't take it personally. If they tell you they're not saying that because of how wonderful you are, they're not saying that because of you. You know you are wonderful. It's not necessary to tell people don't take anything personally. Even if someone's got a gun and shot you in the head, it was nothing personal. Okay, that's a little toxic. That sounds a bit personal. Getting shot in the head sounds pretty personal. I don't know about that one, but yeah, I'll put it in here. You can find. You can go in here. I don't know, man. I'm gonna add a footnote. IDK, man. That sounds pretty personal. That sounds pretty personal to me. All right. Each one has different thoughts and feelings. The programming. Every agreement is like a separate living being. Each has its own personality and its own voice. There are conflicting agreements that go against agreements. The mitote, the Maya, is the reason the illusion is that hardly know what they want, how they want it, or what they want it. They don't agree with themselves. because yeah, so there's a link that one I have here, what you want. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, I'll just link it in the, I don't like, sometimes I don't like to like find it. What you want isn't what you want, because all of my files are stored by like numerical. Finding the title sometimes just takes a minute, and I don't want to do that really right now. But I will leave that open. Even if others lie to you, it's okay. They are lying to you because they're afraid they'll discover that they are not perfect. This book is like a lot of like self responsibility, but almost at the same time, like kind of coping because it's like, oh, well, other people are doing the wrong thing and you're doing the right thing because you follow the four agreements. And like, that's, I think, a big problem with a lot of like the self help kind of category of books is that it's very much like, once you do this, you will be happy. And like, there's not really a single prescription that makes sense for that, I don't think. Um, but this is kind of just repetitive. You are responsible for the actions of others. You are only responsible for you. You see a person you like, they walk away. A whole dream begins to form your assumptions. MFW. Any day on a New York City subway, falling in love with someone I never met. There's a TikTok about this. TikTok bus love. Okay, I'll just find out later. I can put that in the to process hashtag to process TikTok about falling in love with stranger on a bus. It's very interesting how the human mind works. We need to justify everything, to explain and understand everything in order to feel safe. We have millions of questions that need answers because there are many things that the reasoning mind cannot explain. It is not important that the answer is correct, just that the answer makes us feel safe. That is why we make assumptions. I apparently in 2019 thought that this was amazing in all caps. Do I think it's amazing in 2023? I mean, this part I do agree with, that this is like coping basically, right? Like there's a whole field on coping. I don't know if I have um the article that I read about it. It's called okay, I don't think it's amazing anymore, but I can just say the to process coping and rituals. Oh yeah, no, I think I remember this. I think it's rituals. Rituals. The real magic of rituals. When people experience uncertainty or lack of control, they are more likely to seek patterns when there are none. Yes. So I found it. So I don't need this anymore. Um, this whole thing is pretty based, but I'll try and stick to the word of the bold, which is not to bold everything. The classical view is that when there is high uncertainty, we experience anxiety. Also true. Also very, very nice. Thank you, Kanye. Get rid of this guy. Put this here. Do this thing. And then there's a funny tweet about coping. There we go. I found it. And what are we supposed to do? Not cope? Um, okay, I'm going to turn this one into a note so I can close these tabs. So, the magic of copium, perhaps. The art of copium. Usually, if something has like a joke or a tweet in it, I like list it as humor, even though not everything is funny. Philosophy, just a thing that I do. And biology, actually, right? Because this has to deal with anxiety. So here's another thing: is that like, I have like a project for all my roles. So I have like one for mental health and stuff like that. But like this actually isn't something that I can put in there, but I can put it under anxiety because it's not actionable. That's like the kind of actionable resources is my go-to line. The art of copium. The art of copium. And let's just copy this so we don't have to do that search again. And then link that there. And then do that and do that. Okay. We make the assumption that everyone sees life the way that we do. Okay, we've already read that. Making assumptions to ask questions, we read that. Also, find your voice for what you want. Everybody has the right to tell you no or yes, but you have the right to ask. Uh, yeah, sure. All human problems will be resolved. Nope. Always do your best under any circumstance. Always do your best. Gambate, right? No more and no less. It's kind of a badass rhyme. Under any circumstance, always do your best. No more and no less. Do your best, and you will perhaps learn that no matter how long you meditate, you can live, love, and be happy. They work so hard all week, suffering the work, the action, because they like to, because they feel they have to. They work because they have to pay the rent. To support their family, they have all that frustration, and then when they receive their money, they're unhappy. They have 2 days to rest, to do what they want to do. What do they want to do? They try to escape. They get drunk. They don't like to live their life. There are many ways that we hurt ourselves. So I think that we just wrote a note on suffering, right? What is this? Um, okay. Oh, cheap and expensive. Oh, this actually works. Take this guy, move it right in here, and then just copy this. Copy that, paste, and we're almost done. We're almost done. It's been 2 hours, and then I'm gonna log off. Action is about living fully. Inaction is denying life. Inaction is sitting in front of the TV because you're afraid to be alive and take the risk of expressing what you are. Expressing yourself is taking action. Yeah. I love you, God, is to live your life by doing your best. Thank you, God, is the way of letting go of the past and the present moment. Again, not really religious, but sure. If you do your best for the search of personal freedom, in the search of self-love, you will discover that it's just a matter of time before you find what you were looking for. It's not about daydreaming or sitting for hours in meditation. You have to stand up and be a human. You have to be the man or woman that you are. Respect your body, enjoy your body, love your body, feed, location 710. There's no need to blame your parents or anyone who abused you in life, including yourself, but now is the time to stop it. It's time to free yourself of the tyranny of the judge by changing the foundation of your own agreements. Sure. Your life is the manifestation of your dream, and you can change your dream. Dream masters create a masterpiece. Uh, Funnily enough, this has to do with like kind of like Cal Newport's deep life planning, but not really, because I guess it's closer to manifestation. Every agreement, you'll need a new agreement. Imagine that the human mind is the same as your skin. You can touch healthy skin. Now imagine, I don't know where this is going. Psychotic behavior occurs when the mind is so frightened that the wounds are so painful it feels better to break contact with the outside world. I think I put a note on insane earlier, right? That we were looking at just a second ago. I'm insane. I can feel it in my bones, coursing through my veins. When did I become so cold? For goodness sake, Where is my self-control? If home is where the heart is, then my heart has lost all hope. When will you mortals believe he's not a vampire? He just has the world to see. He's not a vampire. Just off the flight of your blood. Not a vampire, swear to God. You will know you've forgiven someone when you see them and no longer have an emotional reaction. What do I care if others think if I'm gonna die in 1 week? I'm gonna be myself. Why do I need to deny that I love you? Do I put this in the time capsule? Time capsule. Oh my God, I just closed it. Okay, the angel of death says, you see that everything in this house is mine. It's your house. You blah, 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 blah. I can take it away, but for now you can use it. Sure. I think that one's closer to this one, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. These actually both, I think, go here. The expansion of notes, man. One has, oh, we're almost done. Yes. One love has the ability to put you in a state of bliss. Being in bliss is being in love. Being in love is like being in bliss. You are floating in the clouds. You're perceiving love wherever you go. Is entirely impossible to transpose the whole thing to because others have done it and they're no different from you. They live in bliss. Yeah, whatever. Scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. Copium. Uh uh falling in love on public transit. Know how to hit, how to hook. Um, hmm. You don't want what you think you want. Ah, it did come up. But I'm gonna do it anyway. Cartman, personal importance. Humor. South Park is humor. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Okay. Do this thing. Leave that. Get rid of that. Do that. Do this. Sure. This is under to process still. Whenever I think of paladins, I think of like zealots and like WoW, especially. Kind of like this idea of just like zealotry. Mm. This is just me moving it to the attachments folder that's public. And then I'm just going to call this Paladin WoW. And then I'm going to compress that image. Because, yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to say out loud. So it starts out at 8.8 megabytes. And now I'm going to run my compression action, which I found on the internet. I don't know where. But it's shrinking it. Hold. We're at 2.6 megabytes. Still fucking massive, though. Still really big. Unfortunately. Maybe I get a little bit more. Come on, baby. 2.3 megabytes. Still really big, but not the end of the world, I guess. Link that here. Keep in mind there is a reason for my madness with these file names. It's because they are unique IDs that can be found anywhere. And that's it. Actually, wow, we did the whole book. We done it. We done did it. Look at that. Yes. Oh, another book down. So we get rid of this to process. And then I go into publish. And then I look at all the changes. And this is where you kind of like get to feel the good work that was done today, right? Like this is the Blues Clues almost feeling of of success. We were like, yeah, I did it. Highlight all these, select them, publish. Oh yeah, watch that go. Watch the screen go. Let's go. Let's go. And then I go into the homepage, the old homepage, the old refresh. Go into dark mode because it's laid out. And then I go to the bottom and there's all of our new loads. Some I still have work to do on, but those are in my to process, so I can find those later. Uh, Okay. Well, that's it. That's the stream. Um, it's over. We made it. Another successful day. Um, Thank you, Tomorrow and Zero, for coming into the chat. I'll probably be live again tomorrow. I really like this format, so I think I'm just gonna keep grinding through it because I have a lot of books to get through on my to process, and then uh, again, making content is just grinding and consistency. So when you find something that works, like stick with it. Um, so yeah, I'll probably be back tomorrow. Happy 2023. Uh, and Ars longa vita brevis. I've never like said that out loud. I don't know if that should be like a stream ender thing, but I'm trying to like figure out ways to kind of like, have community sayings or whatever the fuck. So take it easy. Bye.